Hi, I'm Greg Gorbach, and I'm here today with my colleague at ARC, Colin Masson. Welcome, Colin.
Well, it's great to be at ARC.
We wanted to talk today about a report that we've just released about industrial AI in general, and we did a little bit of an exploration about what are leaders doing in this marketplace. Can you just jump in and talk a little bit about some of the learnings we noticed?
Yes, I mean, we canvassed or surveyed 525 industrial organizations, and we actually went through what differentiated really the leaders in terms of adoption, and we measured adoption of AI through 25 use cases kind of spread across production, supply chain, sales and service, product and process innovation, and of course, the workforce skills gap. And so we measured those, got our responses to all of those use cases, and then identified who we thought were the leaders, and then we looked for the key characteristics. And I think the biggest one, and we've heard it actually at the ARC forum this week from a number of our customers validating that they are actually creating a center of excellence for AI, and they're actually governing AI just like they do their data, their security, their compliance issues. And so that was probably top of the list, was really that you have to have that center of excellence for not just for the governance process, but there was two other attributes. One was really that center of excellence helps you build in-house skills. We saw that as another leadership characteristic. They weren't always going to consultants. They were actually building up their in-house AI skills. And the second thing they were expecting that center of excellence thing to do was really go and test approved vendors. And it came up today with Dow. We're actually talking about how they actually do go through a formal process to look at all the different generative AI being the hot topic, right? Generative AI techniques. Yeah. So they actually test what's the security, what's the accuracy, what are they good at? And so they approve which of those are actually usable for industrial AI use cases.
Well, one thing I noticed, and building on an earlier report that you did, which was, I think it was called the Industrial AI Evolution Revolution, something like that.
Right.
And companies have been doing AI for quite some time. So yes, it's new. When I came to this event this week, the first 6 people I talked to, the first thing out of their mouth was AI. So there's a lot of enthusiasm. But there is that gap that we discovered in this leadership report that we did, and how it strikes me that there's so many pieces. There's the governance that you mentioned, and the center of excellence. You need to have something like a data fabrics in place, which suggests that you need a proper software architecture to drive all that. So. That sounds big. It sounds big. It sounds expensive, and it sounds hard. Where do you start?
Well, yes, we generative AI, and we kind of showed in our survey, actually parallel survey that we do every year on what were the most impactful technologies, and we showed a massive jump, right? Almost 35% jump. AI was number one last year, but it jumped like 35% this year. And a lot of that, it remains to be seen how much of that is the generative AI hype. But just picking up on your earlier point, AI is not new. And I think that's a lot of what we've been discussing at this forum, and learning from a lot of the customers. And this is the advice we gave them in the report, that what we saw leaders doing and why they're so much further ahead in AI is they've been using AI techniques that go back 20, 30 years in some cases. You're talking about machine learning and neural nets really being the mainstream for production and quality type scenarios where you're doing anomaly detection or trying to predict failures. So yes, there's a lot of discussion about Gen AI and there's a lot of excitement about it, but it's very focused on particular use cases right now, like operator assistance or going back and looking at all your documents. The question of where do you get started, we talked about governance, and so for many of those leaders, it's an easy add, right? They kind of already have data governance in place, and data is really where, guess what, we can generate a heck of a lot more garbage with these generative AI systems if it's poor data that's going in. So garbage in, garbage out has never been truer. So the place to start is with, I like to call it an industrial grade data fabric. So you'll hear data fabric tossed around by enterprise vendors, but really that's more focused on customer data, very well understood data. In industrial segments, you're talking about real-time series data, you're talking about video data, you're talking about all the process flow diagrams that you may have. So you've got lots of different data types and complex data types that haven't been really modeled in large language models, which by definition are language models. And so you really have to look at all of that data. Most of it belongs to you and is key to the differentiation. It's your intellectual property as an industrial organization. So how do you tap into that data and leverage it for whatever new AI technology comes along? So Gen AI right now, large language models, but there's mixed mode models coming along that can do better jobs with those other data types. We heard on our main session, right? We heard from IBM talking about the fact they're working on time series mode models, right? And of course, Siemens and Microsoft and Aviva are all working on industrial data types, and every week you hear about some new technique or improvement. So I think this hype might stick around for a while.
Oh yeah, I think you're right about that.
But a lot of it is going to be dependent on, as we saw, the biggest challenge, the biggest technical challenge, which came out in our Leader Laggard survey, and this one applied not just to leaders, but everyone, was how do I ensure data quality because of that garbage in, garbage out problem? If I'm going to put more and more data to train these systems or make them actionable, it still has to be high quality data.
Well, is that a people problem at the end of the day? Do you need the right skilled set of workers in order to pull that off, or how do you do that?
Well, we had a great discussion on our keynote panel, right, about can AI, and again, it's not just Gen AI, but can AI help us address the skills gap? And I think it was a resounding yes, right? We actually really heard how lots of the development of these systems is going to be dependent on being able to learn the skills from operators. Came up, I don't know how many times. How do I learn from that operator that's been running that process for 20 years? And somehow we need to tap into what he hasn't written down anywhere, right? And actually build that into an AI system that can guide the new normal, which is usually it's an operator maybe with 20 months of experience that you're asking to actually manage that process just as effectively. And so that's the big opportunity. So we've talked about skills gaps and the need to transfer those skills somehow into systems for a while. So that seems to be new opportunities on how do we get there with the latest breakthroughs in AI.
I mean, so how important is budgeting then? Because you've got to pay for some people and
I'm glad you raised that,
and
Greg.
some systems and some AI tools and some database or data fabric tools.
Right. Well, obviously, I encourage people to dig into the report itself, right? Because there's a lot of insights from the report. We're just trying to summarize a few of them there. But specifically, budgeting for AI is obviously a huge step, right? If you don't have a budget for it, it's kind of tough to make progress. So that was one characteristic we saw. What did you see in that data?
Well, I mean, I really think it's that. The challenge is to figure out what to put in that dedicated AI budget. You know, is it just the AI tools? No, probably not, because you need the workers, you need some architecture, you need some data fabrics, you need some research. Right. You know, you need to figure out how you're going to work with some of your big enterprise players. I mean, there's a lot going on.
So maybe let's just net out a couple of the other insights there, and you've touched on some of them. So not just the governance, but actually investing in some form of industrial grade data fabric was another characteristic that we saw.
Right.
Investing in people skills, or thinking about how do you augment people with AI was another key differentiator, where we saw the leaders were more likely to be building up skills internally, but also their use cases were very much more focused on how do I augment people rather than automate them or create autonomous solutions, which again came up in other research where, frankly, we saw only 3% of the respondents said they really think they can get to fully autonomous systems. So that idea of augmenting people with AI rather than replacing them was another key attribute of the leaders.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of run out of time here, and I'm afraid we've only scratched the surface, but there's a lot more information in the report. So I encourage everybody to seek out a copy of that, and contact Colin and I if you have any further questions. So thanks, Colin. Good to talk to you about this.
Great. I look forward to many, many calls asking for more details. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.